Having just sunk a few dozen hours into Far Cry 6 to 100% it, I thought about whether or not I'd ever come back to it. After all, I've replayed 5 and New Dawn a ridiculous number of times now. Sadly, the answer was a definite no. I won't be fighting as a guerrilla in Yara ever again. Far Cry 6 looks fairly pretty, it has great acting all round and some pretty intense set pieces that genuinely made me feel like I was in a movie. But that's about it. Lots of what made the previous games has either been stripped out or changed beyond recognition. Firstly, the progression system. Well, it's not really a progression system to be honest. All you do is look for different gear that all have different perks, which you then have to swap out depending on the situation. The right tool for the job, Danny. Gone is any sense that you're becoming more of a badass with every action you take. I wasn't excited to find a new piece of gear because I knew it probably wouldn't be useful. For all its faults, New Dawn did it perfectly. Baddies had 4 distinct levels, and you knew you couldn't go near anyone higher than you. This gave you the motivation to get out there and buff up. Heck, even the fact that you got perk points for using every different type of gun you got your hands on was a great incentive to experiment, something Far Cry 6 discourages. The fact that there's effectively different elements of ammo also contributes to this. Armor-piercing ammo won't work against non-armored enemies, and that's ridiculous, and ammo types can't be changed on the fly. This leads to frustrating encounters where you're constantly thinking about what gun you should be using rather than the actual fight. You also die very quickly compared to previous games, which means you're best off picking soldados off from afar. I didn't touch a single shotgun the whole game. Also, the numbering system is largely arbitrary and confusing. Areas have ranks, so do you, but they don't relate in any way to the rank of gear. To be honest, all 3 of these numbers seem to mean nothing in reality. Another major thing I loved about 5 and New Dawn were the guns for hire. Buddies that fought alongside you and genuinely kept you company. They would all have unique conversations depending on who you had. And yes, while you heard the same lines over and over again by the end, having Herc, Grace, Nana or whoever else with you made the games that much more enjoyable. Okay, even though I found myself talking to Chorizo in real life like a crazy person, it didn't help stave off the feeling of loneliness I had while traipsing around the Yaran countryside to fill in the whole map. Like a crazy person. It's just another thing in the previous games that helped you feel like you were actually part of the world. Why on earth wasn't there a full-on squad mechanic in 6? You could have had some guerrillas with you on a mission, ready to follow your command. That would have been a great innovation and almost fixed the game. All of these issues led to a game that I couldn't wait to be over within the first couple of hours, and that feeling just got worse as time went on. But there was one more issue that got me thinking about not only how this game could be improved, but many other stories too. You see, a good story needs, yes, a beginning, a middle and an end, but more accurately, the ingredients needed are tension, conflict and resolution. Many argue that a good antagonist is the key to all 3. I agree. Some great examples are Vaas from 3 of course, Handsome Jack from Borderlands 2, and I'm also going to say Thanos from Infinity War, but not from Endgame. Why do I say that? Well, in Infinity War, Thanos takes a personal interest in the situation, in our heroes. He rolls up his sleeves, well, cuts them off, and gets involved. His presence is always felt, even when he's not on screen. He could turn up at any point to create direct conflict. And by the end, the animosity felt between him and the heroes is incredible. You feel what they're feeling: anger, despair, grief. This is also the same with Vaas and Handsome Jack. They're always popping up to make your life miserable, whether in person or over the phone. They take an interest in you, the player. We're relational beings. We want to know that people care, even if it's the bad guys caring in a not nice way. By direct comparison, Thanos in Endgame does not represent this. He's not even there Thanos. He's absent until the final battle, and when he turns up, he drops this clanger.
I don't even know who you are.
Yes, the Russo brothers actually thought this line sounded cool. All it does in reality is destroy the animosity, all the tension that was created over a decade in the MCU leading to that point. You no longer feel as invested in the fight and you just want it to be over. Incidentally, I might make a video on how I think Endgame could have been fixed in 2 easy steps. Anyway, back to Far Cry 6's antagonist, Anton Castillo, played by the one and only Giancarlo Esposito. I love this guy. As soon as he appeared on Breaking Bad all those years ago as Gus, I knew he was someone else. In most of his roles, he need merely talk, and you know that his evil knows no bounds, and yet you can't help but like him at the same time. That's pure talent, and he shows it here too with his conversations with his son Diego. But here's the problem. Until the final half hour of the game, you don't even interact with Anton. Not even in the intro, really. You just happen to be there when he does something awful. For 99% of the time, you're doing your own thing, and he's doing his. and you never meet, and he doesn't seem concerned about you in particular, just the vague threat of your group, Libertad. There's no tension built, as nothing you're doing seems to relate to Anton at all. It then ends up being somewhat awkward and surprising when he finally addresses you in a cutscene, and you don't really feel much at all. It comes out of nowhere. The conflict hasn't been foreshadowed, it hasn't been set up. It's also not a conflict you take part in yourself. As an aside, Ubisoft's decision to drop first-person cutscenes was a massive mistake, as it further pulls you out of any immersion you might have. So they've ruined the tension, they've ruined the conflict. What about the resolution? Yeah, they balked that too. Not to give spoilers, but suffice to say that it's one of the most anticlimactic, dissatisfying endings I've ever experienced, which left me saying to myself, so what was the point in any of this? It actually made me realise just how clever Far Cry 5's writing was, if a little clunky. You have 3 lieutenants, John, Jacob and Faith Seed, all of whom take a personal interest in you. You know that every action you take is going to bring you closer to seeing them again, and wondering, what are they going to do this time? The tension is built really well through their trash talk over the phone. The conflicts are really quite fun, and you feel like you've made Hope County that bit better by taking them down. These resolutions are good in themselves, but it all culminates in the ultimate showdown with Joseph Seed, where he turns your friends you've got to know so well against you. How much more invested could you be in a final fight? The closest you get to this in Far Cry 6 is Sean McKay, the Canadian tycoon who almost makes some sense at times. But he's particularly memorable because of the interactions you have with him for a small portion of the game. In that couple of hours, he's introduced well, you have some quite funny conversations with him that build tension, and then you have the final conflict, and you actually get to choose how it ends. And he's actually a somewhat likeable guy, which is more than what can be said for the majority of the characters on your side. Bar my man Philly, of course. I literally couldn't tell you what the names of any of the other baddies are in Far Cry 6. They just pop up on screen 1 second and then you have to go kill them the next, feeling nothing again. Even Mickey and Lou from New Dawn had some background, and Joseph and Ethan Seed had some great character development. You know what? That game really did grapple with some deep themes regarding things like sin, forgiveness, family. It's just a pity that the ladies didn't have any of that depth. But I really do rate that game and I don't understand the hate that it gets. At the end of the day, a good story is one that has you immersed, feeling like you're in the protagonist's shoes. There are a lot of things that can help contribute to that. Relatable, likeable characters, a world you feel like you want to live in, meaningful progression. But having an antagonist who cares about you personally is definitely something that goes a long way to creating a story that sticks in your mind for a long time. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.